Dr. Clinton, Secretary Clinton, and Dr. Soto really laid the foundation for our next conversation, which is rightly titled, The Power of Young Women Voters. They, too, are building on the legacy of those who came before us, and as we saw in this midterm election, young people had the second highest voter turnout rate in the last 30 years. No, that's incredible. As Secretary Clinton said, it's something to celebrate, but more work needs to be done. And so here to have this conversation, please welcome me, and let's join Reshma Saujani. She's the founder of Girls Who Code, and we also have Jacylyn Corin. She is the co-founder of March for Our Lives, and two women that I deeply admire.
Hey everyone, so great to be here. People always ask me, are you hopeful, and why? And I always say, yes, I am, because of young women. Because I believe that young women will save us, heal us, and lead us. And there is no better example of what that young woman looks like than the person that is sitting right next to me, Jacylyn Corin. It's an honor to be here. I know you give me hope, you give the women in this room hope, you give our fearless leader, Secretary Clinton, hope. So in 2018, you're 17 years old. You're too young to vote. You're president of your high school class in Parkland, Florida, when you co-found the March for Our Lives. And over the past 4 years, you have organized successful voting drives. You've lobbied state governments. You've run national bus campaigns. You've organized the largest march in the history of our nation. And you are 17 years old. But I think what's so remarkable, and as we're talking about voting, is that you center this organizing around voting when you can't vote. Why? Why did you feel like it was important to have voter registration drives?
Well, my realization of the importance of the vote requires a bit of a backstory. So like Reshma said, my journey in political advocacy started when I was a junior in high school. It actually started the day after the mass shooting at my school that took 17 lives. I was 17, and I, quickly decided that I needed to do something. I wanted to bring 100 of my friends and classmates to the Florida State Capitol to talk to elected officials about the importance of enacting gun safety policy. And just to give you a feel for my kind of lack of political intelligence at the time, I didn't even know what that meant was lobbying. People kept saying, lobby this, lobby that, and I'm like, what are you talking about? But anyway, that's besides the point. When we were at the Capitol, I really thought we were going to achieve our mission, right? I thought we were gonna be received well, but surprise, surprise, we weren't by a lot of elected officials. They turned down our arguments and often invalidated our experiences too, which was hurtful. So that was the moment when I realized we had to couple, our advocacy for gun safety policy with this pushing for voter registration and actually turning out the vote. So the mission of March for Our Lives, my personal mission became, getting out voters, especially young voters. So at the March for Our Lives in 2018, we had over 850,000 people join us in Washington, D.C., and more hundreds of thousands of people join us all around the country and world at our over 800 sibling marches, and we registered voters. And then we took to communities across the country in the summer of 2018, to over 100 communities actually, and I was the lead organizer of that tour the whole summer. And we registered 50,000 voters that whole summer. Yeah. Yeah, and that whole time, I was 17. I wasn't of voting age. Luckily, though, I did turn 18 a couple days before Election Day in 2018. So I did get to vote, but plenty of my friends didn't. And I think there was this special power we felt as young people in registering voters. There's a particular power you feel when you're in the middle of a hot summer day in Arizona, registering 1 or 2 or 3 voters, because that registered voter is a changed community and an empowered person.
Yeah, I also feel like we're also living in this moment where It's like our leaders are behaving like children and our children are behaving like leaders. And it's like there's no better example of that than what happened in this midterm election, where young people and women saved our democracy, and they're going to do it again in Georgia. And so, yep. So what did this past midterm election teach you about the importance of mobilizing young people?
Yes. Yeah, well, young people definitely should be given a lot of the credit. I really feel like Democrats, we didn't lose as much as we were expected to because of young people. And a few statistics that give me a lot of hope. One is that when past generations were those considered young voters, so when they were 18 to 29, so baby boomers, Gen X, and the former half of millennials, sorry millennials, but you're not 18 to 29 anymore, most of you. But when those generations were turning out as young voters, they voted at roughly half the rate that Gen Z is turning out today. Yeah, it's incredible. And then within that, bracket of Gen Z, we specifically have young women of color, and queer youth to thank for turning out. So 71% of young women, 79% of Latina women, 89% of young Black women, and 93% of queer youth voted for Democratic House candidates. Yeah. So, from all of this, I've learned that, I've been reaffirmed, actually, that young people matter and that we can't, ignore the power of young people because we care so deeply about the future of our country, so deeply. So never discredit us.
And we need you to care so deeply about what's happening in the country right now. It's funny. I grew up as a daughter of refugees, and my father used to always read to me these books about Dr. King and Mahatma Gandhi and Eleanor Roosevelt. And so for me, I always felt like the best way that I could give back to this nation that had saved my parents' life was to run for office and serve. It was politics. Obviously, I had role models like Secretary Clinton that just evinced that was a way, that service was the way. But then when I meet young people sometimes, when I ask them about like whether they think politics is the way that you can make a difference, they say no. And that there's a lot of, disgust is maybe the right word, about the political system. And I get it.
Yeah.
So what do you say to them? And then how do you juxtapose that with the fact that though they are turning out and saving our democracy?
Yeah. It's definitely true that a lot of people, young people disparage politics and feel this, like their vote doesn't actually matter. But fortunately, I think that doesn't come from a lack of care or concern for our country, right? So in those conversations, and I have them a lot, just like you, and we all should obviously affirm that, discouragement, I think that's very real. And also, assure them that politics doesn't have to be enjoyable. It's not an enjoyable thing. We've been fighting these battles for so long, right? This is not a fun thing to do. But I always try to bring it back to the fact that a single vote truly does matter in the literal sense, because a lot of elections, especially local races, are decided by a handful of votes, plenty of them. But even in places where, it's pretty certain that it's going to go one way or the other, the vote still matters because that single vote contributes to this larger number that, that says we're here and we care and we're going to fight for what we care about until you fight for us.
Amazing. All right, so our last assignment is to do our CTA.
Yes.
What's the assignment that you're giving every single person in this room?
My assignment is that I would love for you all to go to marchforourlives.com and sign our petition that we have on the website that urges the Senate, the U.S. Senate, to put a vote to the assault weapons ban before the end of this Congress. Thank you.
So I'm someone who likes to build movements. So I built Girls Who Code, and now I'm building my second movement, the Marshall Plan for Moms. So my assignment for everybody is to join the Marshall Plan for Moms and join our fight for paid leave, affordable childcare, and ending the motherhood penalty. And y'all understand this. Like, if we're in a country right now that is forcing birth, then we better provide childcare and paid leave. And young people and young women understand this because you don't want to have kids in the same way we need you to, right? And I get it because we don't provide the support. And so we have an opportunity to change everything. So thank you so much. And JACLYN, I don't have the words to thank you for what you've done and your generation has done to save our democracy, to bring us hope, to bring us light. I can't imagine what it's like that when you hear a noise, it's like that brings you back to how so many children have lived with this fear of dying. My 8-year-old said to me the other day when I was taking him to school, "Mommy, I don't want to die," because he had his first shooter drill. And so with so much gratitude from all of us, from the mothers in this room, I thank you for your fight.
Thank you.